evening. City Council will now convene as the Board of Revisions of Taxes and Appeals. Please rise to the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
And the republic for which is one nation under God. Justice for all.
Okay. Dispense with that. Mr. Ryan, roll call, please.
Mr. Belusko.
Here.
Mr. Marconi.
Here.
Mrs. McBride.
Present.
Mr. Brooks.
Here.
And Mr. Barrett.
Here.
Also in attendance tonight is Assistant City Attorney Maureen Collins, IT Director Frank Hirschberger, Assistant City Clerk Catherine Payne, and Administrative Assistant Lisa Sanfilippo. Good evening and welcome to the City Council sitting as the Board of Revision of Taxes and Appeals. The meeting purpose is the desire of the parties to settle the assessed total valuation of 620 Kidder Street and for the board to consider the recommendation of City Assessor John Anstead to adjust the city's assessed total valuation of 620 Kidder Street to $250,000. Is there anyone wishing to address the board on the recommendation from the public? Okay.
Council questions?
We don't have any call-ins, so council discussion. Council have any questions or comments?
None noted.
Okay, none noted. Sure. Oh, it's a call coming on.
State your name in the record,
Hello, my name is Jason Carr. I would just like to, I did a little research on this building. I believe this is the, correct me if I'm wrong, this is the old Toys R Us building at 620 Kidder Street. And an assessed value of $250,000 is extremely low on this property. And I would completely disagree with the assessment that Mr. Anstead has given this property. If you look across the street, Valley Chevrolet has properties assessed at $1,650,000, and a third tract of land that's really unusable but is actually taxed, and that's assessed at $450,000. So to come up with this assessment of $250,000 is completely off base, and it should not be allowed to be taken as a true figure. And if it's at all possible, if Mr. Anstead is there, how did he come to this valuation? Is it possible that he can explain the valuation?
Mr. Carr, you may not have the whole resolution in front of you, but basically what it is doing is taking the assessed value from $3,375,000, this is fair market value, to $2,750,000. What you're reading there is our millage is different than what fair market value is, so that's where the confusion may be arising from. Again, it is going from 3.375 million to 2.750 million on the recommendation of Mr. Anstead. I'm hopeful that addresses your concern, and I would agree with you if that were the case. Council, anything?
I have a hard time.
And with it knowing it's a large corporation with multiple places around the country, so it bothers me.
Yeah, I agree too. There's, I did a little bit of research as well. There's 140 stores, more than 140 stores, and their sales are $700 million. Just wanted to put that out there as well.
It is a large store. It sat vacant for quite some time when Toys R Us went out of business, and I think we're all fortunate that it is there, rather than just another empty box. I think Mr. Anstead doesn't take into account how many stores they have. He just looks at the property itself and determines its fair market value. Any other questions? Okay. Do we have a motion on the resolution? To adopt the revised assessed value?
I'll make a motion.
Motion, Mr. Belisco. Do we have a second? I'll second it.
Roll call, Belishko.
This is the vote.
This is for the vote. Belishko.
Mike, this is for the vote. Mr. Belisco?
Okay.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Marconi?
No.
Mr. Marconi's a no. Ms. Gilbert?
No.
A no. Mr. Brooks?
No,
No. And I am a yes. Would that be 3-2? No? Was voted down, voted 3-2, 3 noes, 2 yes.
Mr. Chairman,
Okay, we're complete with the vote. We'll make a motion to adjourn. We have a motion? Motion to adjourn.
yeah,
Motion.
Thank you.
is anyone hearing?
Till 6 p.m.
Yeah, I can't. I'm hearing a really bad echo.
Yeah.
Yeah, from the city council chambers, right? There's a, do you hear an echo from my voice?
Yeah, Tony, you're breaking up.
Yeah, you're breaking up, Tony, too, for me.
They're hard to
Good evening. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
And to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Almighty and everlasting God, who presides over all things in heaven and earth, come and preside over these deliberations so that those who make the decisions may be guided by your wisdom.
Thank you.
Okay, good evening. Welcome to tonight's meeting. It's a combined session, starting with the work session and the regular session to immediately follow. On council's agenda, we have first a resolution requesting PennDOT to permanently reinstall the traffic light located at Wilkes-Barre Boulevard of exit 2 of the Cross Valley Expressway, and further that the traffic light have a left turn signal. Questions or comments on that? Next, we have an ordinance to amend the City of Wilkes-Barre zoning ordinance as adopted and enacted on October 12, 2012, to regulations for the recognition and protection of historic resources and the regulation of demolition. Comments on that?
Do you want to make it now or wait till council presentations?
I'm sorry?
Do you want to make it comment now or wait for council presentations?
Oh, okay. All right, thank you. Council presentations.
And here,
Next, we have an ordinance for second and final reading, file of council number 12 of 2020, an ordinance amending the Community Development Block Grant Consolidated Plan Program for year 2020. Again, that's for second and final reading. Any comments on that? Okay, thank you. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Kathy. Okay, we have resolution authorizing the proper city officials to award the Strauss Lane Rehabilitation Project to Manichi Construction in the amount of $311,000. Further, the funds for this project will come from the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation. We also have a new item on my agenda for tonight, and that is authorizing the proper city officials to enter into an agreement with Axon Enterprise Incorporated for the purchase of 70 body cameras, related licensing and data storage for the Wilkes-Barre Police Department at a total cost of $391,800, payable over 5 years at an annual cost of approximately $78,360.
Questions, comments, council?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I do have a question. Where is that money coming from? Just one more time to pay for the body cameras, sir.
Yeah, the first 2 years will be covered by funding that we have through the police department. We have approximately $150,000 we'll be expending for the first 2 years. After that, we'll be seeking grants to cover the last 3 years of that project.
That would be asset forfeiture monies, I'm assuming?
Yeah, that's right, it's the asset forfeiture.
Forfeiture.
Anyway, you're right, Bill, the asset forfeiture, it's tough with this master. The asset forfeiture
Money.
fund.
Okay, great. That's wonderful.
Mayor,
So-
Mayor, if I may, how many cameras is that?
It's 70.
I didn't hear that one either, Mayor. I'm
I didn't
sorry.
hear you.
70 cameras.
70 body cameras, also the storage unit that will be necessary to store the data from the body cameras.
Thank you.
Mayor, how soon would we be able to move forward with this project?
Bill, I can't hear you.
How soon would it be before we would actually see the cameras in service?
Well, as soon as you approve this, we do have the funds available to purchase for the first 2 years. So we'll be able to start that as soon as you give us the approval to do that, Bill.
That's great.
We've been identifying 3 different companies. This is the one Axon that we want. They're ready to go, so we're just waiting to get council's approval.
Okay, thank you, sir. Any other questions on that or the other item?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Well, a couple questions. Can that asset forfeiture money only be used for policing purposes?
The question is, can the asset forfeiture monies only be used for law enforcement purposes?
Yes, that's correct. That's what it's set up for.
Okay. And I know the policy hasn't been made for the body cams yet, but just for the record, I think it's very important when making the policy that officers are required to have this turned on with every civilian interaction. I think otherwise it's a waste of money, so I would really like to see that written into the policy when the policy is made. That's all I have.
Okay, all right. Received, okay, thank you. Okay, Mr. Ryan, anything else on the agenda?
Nope, that's it for the work session.
We'll go to council presentations. Mr. Belisco, anything for us this evening?
Just a couple of quick ones. Is that Butch I see in there?
Yes, sir.
Is Butch there?
Yes.
Butch, I don't know if I'll be able to hear you. I know you don't have a microphone. The traffic light, I know we're looking to approve a traffic light up on Washington Street. But in my district, and I've complained about this traffic light before, when it was broke, I wanted it to stay broke, if you recall that. What's happening now with the Division Street and Cary Avenue is traffic is backing up something terrible. You don't know what time of day, but always at 5 o'clock. But it's going from Division Street to Horton Street. And I waited in the actually traffic for 3-4 light changes. Maybe possibly, I know you're not going to remove and put stop signs there, which I prefer, a 4-way stop sign, but maybe the timing of the light, less time on Division Street, more time on Cary Avenue can alleviate that. Is it something that you could look into for me?
Actually, Mike, we have begun that process, and it takes a while. We have 4 or 5 signals in the city of Wilkes-Barre that are questionable. That's one of them. The one that we're requesting up on the boulevard is another. You know, we can request that, and we have, and we'll send this resolution to PennDOT, but PennDOT ultimately decides on whether or not a traffic signal is merited. So I believe in the case of Wilkes-Barre Boulevard, it is merited, and I think they'll find it that way. And I know, Mike, that they've already said that there's some timing changes pending on the Division Street and Cary Avenue light. I do have some information on the Dane and Park Ave situation, and also on Northampton and Empire that I'll share. I just don't have that information with me. As soon as I get it from PennDOT, I will share that. We will check that, and as soon as I know, Mike, on the timing, I think it is a timing issue. The volume of traffic has increased greatly since that bridge was out of service on both Division and Cary Avenue, so yeah, it will require a timing change. PennDOT has to approve it. I believe they're very close.
All right, thanks, Butch. And one other thing, Strauss Lane Bridge timeframe. I know we're going to approve the contract now for $311,000. Could you keep me informed of meetings and timeframes so I can keep the residents in that area up to speed, please?
As soon as it's awarded, the contract is prepared to begin. So I'm saying
Okay.
in the next 2 weeks, you'll see some activity there. But I definitely will keep
Okay.
you in the loop.
Thank you. That's all for me.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I'm good. Thanks, Butch.
Mr. Marconi?
Nothing further at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Mrs. McBride?
I have nothing at this time.
I am sorry, I didn't hear what you said. Nothing at this
I
time.
said I have nothing at this time.
Okay, thank you. And I as well have nothing. I just want to apologize for the confusion about where the meetings are going to be and the changes. But in the best interest of everyone's health, the current COVID situation, and it seems to be not getting any better is probably an understatement. We felt it was best that we use this particular format. I know it's a little uncomfortable, it's a little awkward, but we feel that it's probably the safest thing that we can do to prevent any problems with the current pandemic situation. So I apologize for any technical difficulties we're experiencing, but I do thank Frank Hirschberger and all the staff here for continuing to work through these. And I think we made a couple changes from the Innovation Center and back to here, and it created a little bit of an issue there, but I think that we're going to have to continue this way for the foreseeable future. And that is all that I have, and that would conclude
I agree, Bill. I think everybody's doing the best they can, and Hirsch is doing a heck of a job.
Thank you. I totally concur with that. Anything else from council? The work session? Okay. Mr. Ryan, anything else?
That's it, Bill.
Okay, we'll take a couple minutes and we'll start the regular meeting. Did I miss anybody? Tony, did I miss you? Mr. Brooks?
Oh, I'll talk later. It's okay.
I apologize if I did.
That's fine.
I was wondering what that was all about. Like, hey, Tony's here, you know.
It's okay.
Well, that's my mistake, I think. Okay. Take a break.
And that one ended, we're gonna start the next meeting. That one's ended, we're gonna start the next meeting.
Harris, you just got a kudo, by the way. Well deserved, by the way.
Whenever you okay. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. The Pledge of Allegiance to the flag
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Almighty and everlasting God, who presides over all things in heaven and earth, come and preside over these deliberations so that those who make the decisions may be guided by your wisdom.
Okay. Roll call, please, Mr. Ryan.
Mr. Blusco,
Here.
Mr. Marconi,
Here.
Ms. McBride,
Present.
excuse me, Mrs. McBride, Mr. Brooks,
Here.
and Mr. Barrett.
Here.
Also in attendance is Mayor George C. Brown, Administrator Charles McCormick, Assistant City Attorney Maureen Collins, Director of Operations Butch Frotty, Controller Darren Snyder, and IT Director Frank Hirschberger. Assistant City Clerk Catherine Payne, and Administrative Assistant Lisa Sanfilippo. Get everybody? Okay. Good evening. First, we have pending legislation. Council will now take questions on agenda items from the public by phone. The phone line is now open. Council will now take calls from the public on agenda items only. And 5 minutes per call, please.
Hi, Jason Carr from Sailorsburg, Pennsylvania. Just a real quick question regarding body cameras. What are the annual maintenance costs of the cameras, as well as the technological storage of the data of all of the camera recording? And what does it specifically entail? And what are the total costs that the taxpayer should expect to pay on an annual basis?
Okay. Mr. Mayor, Mr. Carr is asking the total annual cost for the cameras, the storage devices.
Yeah, Mr. Barrett, the total annual cost is $78,360 per year for 5 years. First 2 years we paid out to the fund at the police department. So that is the total annual cost, $38,360.
And that includes all maintenance, everything, storage fees,
Service contract.
total. Okay. Okay, thank you, sir. Council, any questions on that? Kathy, did we have any emails on? Okay.
We do.
State your name, where you're calling from.
Joel Zatowski.
I'm sorry, can you
Hello.
repeat that?
Joel Zatowski.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. Is this the appropriate time to call regarding the changes in the zoning for recognition of historic properties? I'd like to.
This is, right now is the time that we would be calling in on agenda items only. It's not for general public comment. These are items that are on tonight's agenda. If it relates to those.
It's on the agenda. Okay. That's on the agenda. What's that, son?
Can you please repeat your question?
It is on the agenda, so should I be calling later, or can I speak now about it?
If it's on the agenda, but what, can you repeat your question, please?
Right now. It's not a question, I just want to call to endorse the amendment. I am living downtown, I have businesses downtown. I've been restoring properties in the downtown since 1978. And this ordinance is long overdue. I feel the ordinance, your purposes are right on target. I think it will only encourage more people to invest downtown, knowing that my neighbor would be held up to a standard. And I think it's a great start. And like I said, I think it's long overdue, and I'm just thoroughly behind it, and I appreciate that you're considering doing this. And that's pretty much it. So I just want to give my whole heart encouragement for you to proceed with this. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
It's very difficult to hear people on the phone. Is there any way that we could turn that volume up a little bit?
Please, working on it right now.
Okay, thank you.
I was going to ask you, did we have any emails on the agenda?
Yes.
Please state your name for the record, where you're calling from.
This is Larry Newman. I'm calling from South Franklin Street in Wilkes-Barre.
Go ahead.
Thank you, and good evening to everyone. As I said before, my name is Larry Newman, and I'm the Executive Director of the Diamond City Partnership, which is Wilkes-Barre's nonprofit downtown management organization. Before I go any further, can everyone hear me okay?
Yes,
Yes.
very clear.
Okay. I want to speak tonight about the proposed amendment to the zoning ordinance that would regulate the demolition of historic resources within the city of Wilkes-Barre. Our city is very fortunate because we've been left a remarkable inheritance of historic buildings. Many of these are nationally significant. In fact, just within downtown, there are more than 190 structures that are listed either individually or as part of the River Street National Historic District on the National Register of Historic Places, which is the nation's official list of structures deemed worthy of preservation because of their significance. However, what most people don't realize is that National Register listings don't automatically protect historic buildings from demolition. The only way to protect historic buildings is to do it at the local municipal level, which is the reason for this amendment. For 3 decades, the city of Wilkes-Barre has contemplated local historic regulations, but to date, nothing has been implemented. Today, among Pennsylvania's 15 largest cities, Wilkes-Barre is one of only 4 without any local regulatory protection for its historic structures. As a result, we continue to lose historic buildings without any opportunity to press pause, which means that we continue to squander one of our city's best tools for economic development. These days, economic development starts with quality of place, which has become one of the major factors dictating where people choose to live and where businesses choose to open their doors. Quality of place starts with the preservation of a community's distinctive character, and that's where historic buildings come in. 20 years ago, the hundreds of residents who participated in the visioning sessions that led to DCP's creation named downtown's historic architecture as one of our center city's 4 key strengths. And today, when DCP surveys ask respondents, what do you like best about downtown Wilkes-Barre, our historic architecture remains at the very top of the list. We hear the same thing when the Visitors Bureau surveys visitors to Luzerne County. Downtown's residential boom during the past decade, our historic buildings are what made that possible. In DCP's most recent survey, 1/4 of downtown residents told us that the historic neighborhood was the primary reason why they chose to move downtown in the first place. Historic preservation is one of the basic tenets of the Main Street approach to downtown revitalization, the secret sauce for every successful downtown revival in this country. There's a direct correlation between local preservation and a community's overall economic health. And state and federal historic tax credits are among the best tools available to developers undertaking projects to rebuild the tax base of cities like Wilkes-Barre. But they can only be used if the historic buildings are there in the first place. When new development builds upon strengths like our city's historic architecture, revitalization becomes self-reinforcing. When those strengths are ignored, it's opportunity wasted. Wilkes-Barre's high-quality historic buildings are among our city's primary assets, yet they continue to disappear. In fact, 30 of the River Street National Historic District's designated historic structures, more than 1 in 10, have been demolished since the district's designation in 1984. This needs to end. The ordinance under consideration is a practical, common-sense amendment to our zoning code following the requirements of Pennsylvania's Municipalities Planning Code, which specifically mandates that zoning ordinances provide for the preservation of historic resources while permitting municipalities to use zoning powers to protect those resources. The amendment will provide thoughtful discussion and develop alternatives prior to demolition, because the reality is that in most cases, demolition is rarely the only practical alternative. And so for these reasons, I strongly urge City Council to consider passage of this ordinance. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Newman. Council members, comment? Okay, thank you, sir.
State your name and where you're calling from.
Sam Troy, calling from Wilkes-Barre.
Go ahead, sir.
Hello?
Go ahead, Mr. Troy.
Is this agenda only? I lost contact here for a while.
Just
agenda
agenda,
comment only?
Sam. Just agenda items right now?
Hello?
Yes, Sam, just agenda items right now?
Is this agenda comment only?
Agenda comment only.
Correct.
The only item, I didn't get to read the whole agenda, except I assume the ordinance that put forward by Mr. Brooks regarding historical preservation is on there, correct?
Yes.
I just want to comment briefly on that. I think that I commend Mr. Brooks for putting this forward. I think it's long overdue, and I hope council will support it. I don't know how far it goes. Maybe somebody could provide some details for me. And I don't assume it's retroactive, because we have certain facades, historical facades, in danger, at least one that I know of on South Main Street. I would hope that to some extent it's retroactive. I don't assume it is. Maybe somebody could elaborate on that for me. But I know that attached to this agenda item, I believe, if I'm correct, is the establishment of a committee, Historical Preservation Committee, which would consist of certain public citizens and I guess one or two council members, and I think that's a very good idea, whose time has come. And I would hope that full council votes for this and recognizes the importance of this idea, because we've lost too much historically significant properties in the last several years, especially during the Layton administration. There were a couple there that we lost without the city having any recourse, I guess, or any desire to save them, such as the Radnor building. So I applaud this effort by Mr. Brooks, and I hope that we will get going in the right direction and follow in the footsteps of our sister city, Scranton, which has seen the light on this issue. And I believe, and I think council should also endorse this idea, because there's a significant amount, I think, of tourist dollars that could be brought in if the idea is forward strongly enough to save some of these properties and allow for tourist attractions. The old Fell House is one example. It's just a parking lot now. That could have been salvaged over there on Northampton and Washington. The first place that ever burned coal, to my knowledge. And if that were still in existence, I think that would be a great tourist attraction. The city could see some revenue on all this. Anyway, that's all I have to say on that, and I appreciate your support. And if anybody wants to elaborate on that, I would certainly have open ears to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Troy. Mr. Brooks, do you want to comment on it?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Troy. So the committee that we're proposing for advisory to the zoning board regarding to historic preservation would consist of an architect, someone versed in urban planning, somebody from code, and then 4 private citizens. So it'd be 7 people.
Okay. Thank you. We have no more calls. I know that we've received several letters on this. If you want to read those in, I believe they're all the same, Mr. Ryan, if I'm not mistaken.
They are, Mr. Barrett. There are a couple of ones that have additional comments made from the standard comments. But we have 16 standard letters on pending legislation, all of them supporting the proposed Wilkes-Barre Historic Preservation Ordinance, in addition to all the ones that have been received in the past most recent meetings. So those get added to the original ones from previous meetings. We do have one more. We do have one which is a standard letter that also supports the proposed Wilkes-Barre Historical Preservation Ordinance, with one additional comment. It's from Mr. and Mrs. Patrick Smith in Hanover Township, and the comment is, "We are Wilkes-Barre shoppers and supporters. Thank you in advance." And the last one is quite different. It's not a standard form letter. Has parts of the standard form letter, but I'll read it with your permission. Members of City Council, my name is Ron Babcock. I grew up in Laurel Run, and I'm writing to voice my support for the Historic Preservation Ordinance to be proposed as an addition to the City of Wilkes-Barre zoning ordinance at the September 10 City Council meeting and planned for a final vote at the October 8th session. When I attended the University of Scranton way back in 2000, I produced an hour-long documentary on the Hotel Casey, located in Scranton. You can actually watch it here, and he gives the YouTube site. I spent a year chronicling both the rise and fall of the building, using it as a microcosm to tell the story of Scranton and NEPA in general. One of the things that I learned was that communities who look at their historic structures as opportunities rather than obstacles do better. The flip side is that this approach is harder. It's so much more difficult to preserve than it is to just tear down and throw up whatever mixed-use condo a developer is peddling. But a historic skyline doesn't just add character and give the city a sense of pride. Historic buildings attract people and money. Steel Stacks in Bethlehem, PA is a great example of what I'm talking about. And then he goes into standard comments about that are on the standard letter. We are told that he talks about the 23,000 communities in the United States with active historic preservation ordinances, and ends up with the final statement of the standard letter. We are told that historic preservation impedes development. Okay, and that's it. That's all we have.
Shall we read one of the 16 letters?
16 plus 2 with a little bit different variation to their letter, 18 in total.
Shall we read one of them for the record? I believe we should.
Oh, one of the standard letters? Oh, okay,
Yeah.
sure. Okay, the standard letter is, has been read in the past. Members of City Council, I am writing to voice my support for the historic preservation ordinance to be proposed as an addition to the City of Wilkes-Barre zoning ordinance at the September 10 City Council meeting and planned for a final vote at the October 8th session. More than 2,300 communities in the United States with active historic preservation ordinances have recognized that existing buildings contribute to the texture, integrity, and economic vibrancy of their regions. Yet Wilkes-Barre is one of the only cities of its size in Pennsylvania that still does not provide local protections for its historic structures. How many irreplaceable buildings could have been saved in the past 2 decades, or even as in the case of Frank Clark Jewelers? In the past 2 months, Frank Clark Jewelers in the past 2 months. Instead, rare and uncommon treasures in our community are torn down for surface parking or allowed to decay beyond repair. I ask you to remember that our historic preservation ordinance will protect not only historic structures, but also adjacent homes and businesses against the devaluing effects of property deterioration. We are told that historic preservation impedes development, but what thriving communities across this country have long since recognized is that architectural heritage is not only a cultural asset, but also an economic one. Through contemporary developmental strategies such as adaptive reuse, the best way to build our future is often to preserve our past. And puts in parentheses, I grew up in Wilkes-Barre and had a wonderful childhood there. Sincerely, Marcia Gross, 100 West Ave, Jenkintown, PA.
Okay. Questions, comments, council? Okay, Mr. Ryan.
Okay, before we get into the voting on the resolutions, ordinances, and minutes, as always, we have combined sessions. I'm going to ask council if there are no objections from council by unanimous consent. All resolutions will be voted on as a consent agenda resolutions, and all ordinances will be voted on as a consent agenda ordinances at this regular session. Are there any objections or any comments?
None noted.
Okay, then they will be combined into consent agendas. So we're going to get into the voting now. Consent agenda resolutions, motion, second, and vote.
I'll motion.
Second.
Mr. Marconi made the motion.
Mr. Belisco.
Mr. Belisco. Okay. And who made the second?
Second.
Who was that, Kath? Tony. Okay, so Mike and Tony. Mr. Belisco.
Yes.
Mr. Marconi.
Yes.
Mrs. McBride.
Yes.
Mr. Brooks.
Yes.
And Mr. Barrett.
Yes.
Motion passes. Next is the ordinances, consent agenda. Motion, second, and vote.
Motion.
Mr. Marconi.
Okay.
I'll second.
And Mike, Mr. Marconi, and Mr. Belisco. Mr. Belisco.
Yes.
Mr. Marconi.
Yes.
Mrs. McBride.
Yes.
Mr. Brooks.
Before, I should have said this before my presentation, but I really want to thank the collaborative effort on this historic preservation ordinance between the State Department of Historic Preservation and the Pennsylvania Historical Museum Commission have been so helpful, to Diamond City Partnership, to the Downtown Residents Association, and of course, my colleagues who have all had ample time to give input. And I want to thank everyone for this. It's been about time for years for such a wonderful historic city. If anyone's gone on any of my historical tours, know that America would not be America without Wilkes-Barre and anthracite coal. And historic preservation is economic development. So when I was a little kid, Jim Thorpe was a dump. And Jim Thorpe today is a beautiful, unbelievable, gorgeous city that has great economic tourism to it. And Wilkes-Barre can be the same. So thank you very much. And of course, I vote yes.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks. And your vote is yes or no? Yes, okay. And Mr. Barrett?
Yes.
Motion passes. And finally, we have the adoption of minutes for authorities, boards, or commissions. Motion, second, and vote.
Motion.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Barrett and Mrs. McBride. Mr. Belisco.
Yes.
Mr. Marconi.
Yes.
Mrs. McBride.
Yes.
Mr. Brooks.
Yes.
And Mr. Barrett.
Yes.
Motion passes also.
Thank you, Jim.
Okay, thank you. Next, we will get into the presentations of council members.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Belisco, anything additional this evening?
Nothing more. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Marconi?
Yes, I do. I would just like to invite all of the union reps to join our November 4th budget meeting. We're looking for solutions to keep the city going and also to help the residents as well. I just wanted to put that out there, and that is all that I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Mrs. McBride?
Yeah, I would like to say a few words regarding the budget. Obviously, I know that we have the budget hearing coming up, but I am getting inundated with calls, so I would like to address it a little bit tonight. As everyone in the public is aware, council has some difficult decisions coming up with the proposed 2021 budget. Since the budget was proposed, I've received a lot of calls and messages from both residents of the city and from city workers. And I can't help but feel that this has quickly become a this versus that scenario. And that's just simply not the whole case. I believe that there are things that we can still cut back on in the budget without necessarily laying off workers who do their job to the best of their ability. Now, this isn't to say that some layoffs won't be necessary, as I'm sure some will be. But I think we owe it to the residents of the city to explore all of our options and to go through positions that we simply just can't afford anymore. I've heard some residents say that they don't mind paying an extra $1.92 a week if it means that someone can keep their job. And I just want to remind people that not everyone has the luxury of deciding whether or not they are willing to pay more for services. We have an aging population and a lot of residents on a fixed income. They have money to buy, they can't decide to earn more money. Instead, they have to decide whether or not they'll have money to buy all the groceries they need or the medication that they need. Similarly, younger families can only work so many jobs and earn so much money, especially during a pandemic. This isn't about choosing whether or not to pay a higher fee. Most people simply don't have that choice. As I said before, we're going to need cooperation from our unions and our union representatives. As someone who grew up in a union household, this isn't being anti-union. It's working together for the benefit of every single resident in our city. I intend to go over in detail my questions, concerns, and recommendations regarding the budget during our budget hearing. I've already received an email from one union representative stating that they have done all they can do on their end. So I would like to respectfully ask representatives from each of our 4 unions to attend the budget hearing on November 4th, so that both council and the public can offer suggestions and ask questions. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Brooks, didn't forget you.
Yes. Well, I want to add a few of my thoughts and observations to the general discussion on the city's budget for 2020. I know we will be discussing the budget more on Wednesday, November 4th during our public hearing. I have mentioned many times before during the budget discussions that in many ways our hands are tied by Harrisburg, third-class city rules, healthcare costs, pension obligations, and multi-year contracts. Throwing in a declining to flat property tax base and ever-increasing school taxes, limited incentives for regionalization and municipal cooperation and consolidation, and neighborhood to suburban flight, we have a situation that keeps the city circling the drain, just like many of our working class families and low-income senior citizens who live paycheck to paycheck. Is there hope in this situation? Of course there's hope. I would not be sitting on city council if I do not believe in hope and solutions in honest discussion with my fellow council members, the administration, the 4 labor unions which represents employees, and the residents of Wilkes-Barre. First, I want to say that Mayor Brown and my city council colleagues are doing everything and trying their best to come up with solutions in this time of national crisis during the COVID pandemic. We have a very collegiate relationship with each other, and we are all honestly wanting to work for what's best for our residents, our businesses who employ people in the city, and City Hall employees who deliver city services to our residents and businesses. All of America and Wilkes-Barre is suffering from COVID. Unemployment is high, small businesses are hurting, food prices are going up, tax revenue for the city is going down, our poverty rate is at 30%, cost of living adjustment for senior citizens for 2021 is projected to only be 1.3%. I have spoken to people who have had COVID in their family that have dramatically increased their expenses in their household for health care for their family. And I have had 3 friends die from COVID. Times are tough. The last thing people need in their family is another layoff. All of us are looking towards Washington and our federal government for help. It's sad to say the extreme partisan gridlock in Washington is not providing nothing. Our residents are crying for help. On Wednesday, November 4th, is the public hearing for the mayor's 2020 budget. I encourage the residents of Wilkes-Barre to participate in the discussion. I also encourage the leadership of our 4 labor unions to join us in that discussion on November 4th and help us offer solutions as well. I am often asked by my constituents, why do some City Hall employees live outside of the city? I do not have an answer for them. I'm not saying anything really new or earth-shattering. We all know that people living and working in Wilkes-Barre will economically turn us around. That's why our concentration should be geared towards the economic revitalization of our business districts and our neighborhoods. And I always extend my hand to help the city administration, the Chamber of Commerce, and the Diamond City Partnership on all its economic development goals. You know I'm passionate about recreating the city in which I live, and I can assure you that I will continue to pour my heart and soul into the city until the day I die. God willing, that's 40 more years. But most of all, I'm very grateful to the voters who elected me and afforded me the opportunity to sit at this table. And I'm grateful to the mayor and my city council colleagues for the honest and realistic conversations over the coming weeks to come. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. I'm not going to get into the budget discussion myself also. The only thing I do want to thank is the mayor and his administration for providing the comparable fee numbers for the other municipalities that surround us. I know that some of them they're all smaller than us, but I've taken the time to look at larger cities as well, and they are similar to the numbers that you provided. So I didn't see anybody in all of the comparables that you provided that is paying anywhere near as little as we are paying for recycling. And I know that you're just notified that the recycling fee, tippage fee, I believe that's the word, is going up dramatically as well. But in speaking to some other people that live around the area here that I know personally that have been following this, they are amazed at what our DPW crew is able to pick up every week, including yard waste that a lot of municipalities don't do. They'll give you a place that you can take it to, that you can put out as much as you want for less than $1 a week. And I know that we are bleeding money on that, and it's only going to get worse. So I thank you for providing that information. It was very helpful to, I believe, all of us as well. So thank you, sir. And that is all that I have. Anything else from council? Darren? You want to step up to the microphone so we'll be able to hear you. Mr. Snyder, our controller.
I just had a question for the mayor and the administration regarding the budget, and if a possibility in 2022, when the employees lose their health care for life, we'll probably see a mass exodus. So I was wondering if there was any potential possibility to offer maybe early retirement to reduce the number of employees, to cut expenses, so that we might not have to increase the fees for the residents as much.
That's a great question, Mr. Snyder. The last thing that we want to do is lay people off. I've been very vocal about that. If we do have to lay people off, naturally I'd like to make it as easy for them as possible. And we'll look at any avenues that we have to make it as easy as possible. And Darren, you have a good mind for business. I'll be happy to, sort of work with you on that if you don't mind. But look, I don't want to do this. It's something we may have to do. If we have to do it, I'm sorry, but we'll do it the best way we can for our employees.
Thank you, sir. Good suggestion. Anything else from council on council discussion? Okay, moving forward under public comments. We'll take phone calls.
State your name and where you're calling from.
My name is Matthew Scott. I'm a resident of East End.
Go ahead, sir.
Yes. Just one thing. I was my comment was toward council with the budget. And I was wondering if the council members, as if they go around to their districts, door to door, and ask for votes, you know, do they, to come to their decision, for the ones that have come to the decision that they don't want to vote for the budget, have they walked around door to door in their district and asked each person individually, or is it just from their friends, families, and neighbors?
Okay, is that it, sir?
Is that all you have, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Short answer to that, unless somebody else wants to expound upon that question, is that is the purpose of the public budget hearing, that you can reach out to all of us at the same time and give us your comments. I don't know of anybody that's going around door to door and asking about that, but I do know that we've all received questions, comments, and suggestions relative to the budget. Council members, anything else on that? Okay.
I did not go around knocking on doors, but I didn't personally get any negative feedback on what Mayor is proposing with the slight increases in the fees. So I can't say I got any feedback other than I did get one or two positives saying you got to vote for it. We cannot have layoffs. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
So for me, I've been keeping a tally, and I received 4 calls from union members from the city, and 27 calls from senior citizens in my district who said they can't afford it. But I am not walking door to door. I just received the phone calls.
So myself, I have not been going around door to door. However, I have received calls, some messages asking me not to increase the fees.
Thank you, sir.
I haven't been going door to door, but I have received a lot of calls and messages from residents in my district. And they are all opposed to the fee increase. And the only people that I've heard that are in favor of the fee increase have been city employees that have contacted me.
Let me jump in there one more time too. Also, I've been contacted by a few city employees, and they are in favor of the increase.
Okay, Kathy.
Hi, state your name and where you're calling from.
Hi, my name is Lois Strum, calling from Spring Street, Wilkes-Barre.
I'm sorry, can you say your name again?
Lois Strum.
Lois Graham.
Go ahead.
Hi. So I'm calling with a few things. I'm going to go from the smallest to the biggest. First, I'd like to say I wish we could find a better way to make the virtual meetings easier and better to hear. It has been extremely difficult for me to follow along this evening because of the poor audio quality, such as low volume and massive echoing from some of the council members and callers. Second, I wanted to address a somewhat small issue, but a potentially big one. In January 2019, the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals ruled that the interactive portion of a public official's Facebook page is a public forum, so an official cannot block people from it because of the opinions they hold. Mayor Brown has been using his personal Facebook page to post mayoral announcements, and in addition to myself, numerous other citizens and taxpayers, homeowners of the city, have been blocked from Mayor Brown's Facebook page after opposing a disagreement on public policy. I would like Mayor Brown to revisit this decision, as it's unfair to citizens of the city to not be able to voice their opinions on public policy without retribution of deletion or hand blocking on Facebook. It also violates our First Amendment right as Americans. Lastly, I'm calling in about the budget. While $1 per week may sound like a pittance to many of you, we are facing pricing increases everywhere, from other taxes by the county and state, increased food and gas prices, not to mention increased pricing for educational supplies for our children that are learning from home. We are being nickeled and dimed to death from all sides of society right now. The city should suspend all non-essential spending from pausing all special events to unnecessary overtime and implementing wage freezes for all employees of the city until we can come to a balanced budget. We have consistently seen mayor after mayor after mayor put the responsibility of funding the city primarily on the backs of the taxpayers, and we cannot afford it anymore. Especially this year under our current circumstances, as the pandemic rages, unemployment increases, and no relief is in sight from our federal or state governments. I challenge the employees of the city to please think of those in the city who pay your wages and benefits. We do appreciate all of your work and dedication to our city, but we need you to understand what increasing fees means to us, the working class of Wilkes-Barre. Please put yourselves in our shoes. Many of you don't live in the city, and that's okay. But wouldn't it be fair to ask you to please agree to a wage freeze so we, the citizens of Wilkes-Barre, don't have to face more money coming out of our pockets at this time in our city's and country's history? Similarly, to the department heads, would it be fair to ask you to objectively look at your workers and see where changes can be made to benefit your department, us citizens, and the city in general? And to Wilkes University and King's College, we're happy that you're here. We recognize the value you add to our city. Conversely, recognize our value to you as a city, the value that city residents add to your schools and your staff. Think of the people who serve your coffee, clean your buildings, and keep your grounds. We deserve more financial investment into the city services that you and your students and staff use on a daily basis. Lastly, I challenge Mayor Brown and the Wilkes-Barre City Council to go back to the budget and find ways to cut spending and increase revenue from other sources besides the working class and elderly of Wilkes-Barre. Thank you.
Thank you. Comments?
State your name and where you're calling from? Hello?
My name is Mark Rabo from Hazelton.
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
My name is Mark Rabo. I'm from Hazelton.
Go ahead.
Yes. Good evening, council members and Mayor Brown. This is Mark Rabo speaking. Normally, I don't come here to Wilkes-Barre City Council meetings, but I felt it necessary considering the budget, and I've heard on the news about the doubling of sewer fees and garbage collection and recycling fees, and I felt it necessary to speak on this issue. I come here speaking as a friend of the city of for the residents and the city of Wilkes-Barre as a neighbor. I have been dismayed, as far as all these increases. I know what it's like to feel how the residents in Wilkes-Barre City feel. As far as increases to pay down the budget or pay the budget, the city expenses for employees. I'm here to present alternative solutions when it comes to the collection of garbage, recycling, and the sewage fees, as I served on the Hazelton City Water Authority for 2 years, and I'm currently on my second tour of duty on the Luzerne County Redevelopment Authority Board. But I'm here as a private citizen speaking to you, offering solutions. One is, I think that the sewer line should be going into a Wilkes-Barre City sewer authority. As it was stated probably end of last year before the mayor took office, I believe strongly that would solve a lot of your problems, especially when it comes to the garbage collection, because an authority can also be contracted to, have the city, in terms of an intergovernmental cooperation agreement, collect the garbage on behalf of the city. It's done in Hazelton. I know because I served on the Hazelton City Water Authority, and the Water Authority collects the garbage on behalf of the city of Hazelton. And it's been going fine. And also, when then Mayor Lou Barletta was Mayor of Hazelton, the delinquents was $950,000. And when it was given to the water authority for the garbage to be collected, now we have like less than, I believe, less than 5% delinquent rate, and that debt was paid off. Okay, so I think that is a solution worth exploring. I think you should reorganize some of the ancillary things into like that sewer authority when it comes to the city sewer lines and to the garbage. You have a golden opportunity here because the time right now, because of COVID, you can restructure that. I think that would be an opportunity. I think that's something that you guys should explore, as well as far as the freezes go. I don't know if you're all aware, but Governor Wolf last Friday signed into law with regards to a freeze on state salaries. It's now, it was signed on Friday, Act 79 of 2020, that would give a freeze to the governor, lieutenant governor, state treasurer, auditor general, attorney general, the commissioners of the PUC, which, by the way, I would like to ask Mayor Brown if he got a rate study, an official rate study done for the sewer rates, because you have to get the sewer rates as far as a comparative study done, an official study, to give to, I believe it's the PUC. So was that done? And also, is it in conformity with the city's Act 537 plan, which is for sewer facilities? That is state law. So that has to be conformed with before, because that has to be given to justify the rate increase. And also, it would allow the city to get grants for any kind of projects through Pennsylvania DCED when it comes to sewer grants, such as the Sewage Facilities Program, the Pennsylvania Small Water and Sewer Grant, and the H2O grant. So those are just three that would give the city the means to repair the sewer system and offset any kind of insurmountable rate increases to the city residents. So those two things right there, and also the freeze that you, Mrs. McBride, was talking about, I think would go a long way to, you know, at least offset some of the increase, or if not all of it. So please do this for yourselves. And I say this again. I am a friend of the city of Wilkes-Barre. I know what it's like. I'm in Hazelton. We're in ground zero of COVID, and we are in Act 47. So please do what you can to consider all options on the table, because you don't want to be down the same road that Hazelton went down when it comes to Act 47. But I think this, what Hazelton did with regards to its garbage and its sewer lines, forming a joint sewer authority with West Hazelton Borough and Hazel Township, was the right answer. And I think that was one of the best decisions they made. So again, I wish you good luck, and I will be praying for you guys and all the people of Wilkes-Barre. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Council comments? Mayor? Okay. Thank you.
Hi, Mark from Wilkes-Barre. Good to go? Hey, so I first off like to talk about the budget and the fee increase. Personally, I don't agree with the fee increase. I mean, for me, the main problem is, like others have said, we've seen increasing fee and taxes for years in Wilkes-Barre, and I think all of this is a result of bad management in the long term, and you can't simply address issues with spending by just keeping on and increasing taxes and fees. I think you have to consider that. I think you have to consider that as you increase fees, you're scaring people away. Literally the other day at work, I had a friend who moved into Wilkes-Barre, and she could not believe how expensive things are. She's like, I paid this much in taxes and this much in fees. She honestly was in disbelief. She could not believe it. It's kind of ridiculous what we pay in the city for what we get. And I think that if you keep increasing, you're just going to scare people out of the city. And as you scare people out of the city, it gets harder and harder to collect that revenue. The less people you have, the less revenue you're going to get. So if you just keep on jacking up taxes, you're only hurting your revenue in the long run. There are fundamental problems with the city budget of we're spending too much in certain areas, and those things need to be addressed before you just try and increase taxes or fees to cover up for budget issues. There's something else I want to talk about, and that's, I'm not sure if it actually ended up on the agenda, but the idea of body cameras. Obviously, the idea of body cameras is good in general, but my concern is what will the policy be? Will they be required to have them on at all times, at very least in every interaction? Because if not, they'll just do what we see everywhere all over the country. People die and conveniently the body camera was turned off. And if there's no programmed policy to say that they will receive punishment for doing that, they're gonna do it. So they'll become entirely useless and the city will just hand out hundreds of thousands of dollars for nothing. In terms of other expenditures, I think that the idea that we just opened all these substations for the police and the next day are asking for fee increases from the citizens is problematic. Were those really necessary and how much were those costing? I think that we need to look at our budget priorities and not just keep increasing fees, and expect people to just pay it without people leaving the city, without people not moving in. You need to be attracting people, not just increasing fees. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Comments? Okay.
Hi, state your name and where you're calling from.
Hi, this is Jason Carr again from Saylorsburg, Pennsylvania. I would just like to address City Council, Mr. Chairman, and specifically I would like to thank Mr. John Marconi, Tony Brooks, and Beth Gilbert for their leadership on inviting the union representatives to come to the budget meeting and explain to the citizens, I would hope, what their rationale and what their ideas are as to why no one should be laid off from the city. Why should they be exempt from the pain that thousands of people are feeling because of the pandemic throughout the city of Wilkes-Barre? Many, many people are suffering. And it is irresponsible for Mr. Valesco to make up a statement to say that no one should be laid off. People cannot afford the taxation within the city of Wilkes-Barre any longer. It's great that you come out with a political line how you are so lightly taxed on the recycling fee and on the sewer maintenance fee. But on the other side of that argument, can anyone tell me a neighboring municipality to the city of Wilkes-Barre that has to pay 3% of their income directly to the city? I didn't think so. So the trade-offs to live in Wilkes-Barre are great for someone who works. I believe I own 26 properties in the city of Wilkes-Barre, and the average income of those people, the people that actually want to live in Wilkes-Barre, that's who I get to choose from. And these are the best out of multitudes of people that want to live inside Wilkes-Barre. The average annual income of my tenant is approximately $18,000 a year. So for my fees, if my fees go up, their rent goes up. And that absolutely takes food off the table. And I know that. But just as you think you don't have any choices, then I don't have any choices. I don't believe that city council should even be in this position. The mayor dropped the ball, He did not take his position as a leader in the city he did not make the necessary decisions that were required at the start of the pandemic to reduce the amount of pain that the city faces with its budget shortfall. On average, if Mayor Brown took advantage of the federal government's CARES Act and its unemployment compensation, the average employee laid off in the city of Wilkes-Barre would have earned $5,000 per month. A huge mistake by Mayor Brown. And I would like to say, keep all your options open. As this presidential election is determined, most likely there is a larger deal on the horizon. As you see the stock market very stable in its range of about 500 to 1,000 points, the expectation is that there is a larger deal on the horizon where more money is infused not only to the American people, but also possibly to the municipalities. And as well, I just sent out some information to everyone on council. Only 12 short years ago, pensions in the city of Wilkes-Barre were funded at a 90% ratio. Today, they stand at 54%. So in 12 years, we've gone from 90% to 54%, and $60 million on the hook for those pensions. So if we stay on that trend over the next 6 years, we're probably at Act 47 if concrete decisions are not made. So I implore Mr. Brooks, Ms. Gilbert, and Mr. Marconi to please work closely with the mayor to solve not only the impending issue, structural deficits that are built in to the economy, the budget of Wilkes-Barre, and also the bigger picture of the pensions and other issues that face the citizens and taxpayers of Wilkes-Barre.
Thank you,
So
Mr.
thank you
Carr.
so much for your leadership, council, and please do the right thing for those citizens of Wilkes-Barre. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Just a short comment from me. We started this pandemic back in March, and it's easy for somebody to say that we should have laid people off at the start of a pandemic, but we need our fire department. We can't lay them off. Our police department, our DPW department, our health department, and all the city hall workers, they just can't go away because we have a pandemic. They came into work during the worst of circumstances when everybody was staying home. They should be credited for that and not criticized. The mayor, you shouldn't be criticized for having your staff here. We needed them more than ever. Back in March, April, May, we still need them. Nobody is falling over anybody here. Nobody is falling over anybody back in April. We are still in a pandemic. It doesn't look like it's getting any better. Just talk about laying people off. The people that worked the hardest for us, that worked through right here in City Hall with the roof gone off of the building in the middle of a pandemic, to talk about, well, we didn't need them, we'll lay them off. We still have to pay their benefits. We still pay their health care when they're laid off. Is that not correct? I believe that is correct.
On their furlough bill, we pay their benefits. When they're laid off, they have benefits until the end of the month that they're laid off.
Mhm.
The 10 people that were furloughed, their benefits were paid, but they were furloughed, which means that they were
Okay.
not actually working.
A little bit different, okay, all right, semantics. and
Can the
stuff.
mayor speak into the microphone? We can't hear him.
He was just describing the difference between a furlough and a layoff, and a little bit different there, but that was the only thing he did mention. I was a little bit wrong in my description of what a furlough is and a layoff, but point being is that those people worked through the worst and continue to work through this pandemic, so we certainly appreciate that. Council members, anything else? Okay. Okay, great, okay. These are emails that have been received from the public, reference to public comments. Mr. Ryan will read them into the record.
Okay, there are 6 emails received on general topics. First one is raising taxes after the devastating impact on the economy would put citizens in even further financial peril. If the city insists on a tax increase, then it should provide economic assistance in other areas such as food and childcare. This will offset expenses for average households. There is no name. That's the extent of the email. There's just an email address. Next is from a citizen who did put their name on. Can it be discussed about maybe replacing the additional tax with a pay freeze for city government employees? I'm asking for this because at the end of the day, even if other items are struck from the budget, the ever-escalating cost of union labor could still bankrupt the city in the future. Thank you, Jessica Letier. Next is from Scott Dustman. He has a couple of concerns. As a 32-year resident of the city, I am happy to say that I enjoy living here, but I have 2 current complaints. The city has a noise ordinance which I would like to see enforced on a regular basis by the city police. People riding around in cars are blasting music at ridiculous levels, which not only disrupts the peacefulness of neighborhoods, it actually rattles the windows in my house. This is also a driving hazard because they cannot possibly hear any outside noise such as an ambulance, fire truck, or police siren. Reporting them to the police is not effective because they are moving. Also, some individuals have been installing these excessively loud sound systems on the city streets. Examples are South Grant Street and South Meade Street. As a business and testing the systems at loud levels in our normally quiet neighborhoods, please fine these individuals as well as residences that play music at ridiculously high levels for no apparent reason but to annoy the rest of us. These incidents violate the city's noise ordinance. Number 2, there is an abandoned house on my street now for about 10 years. Please see the pictures attached to this email. This building needs to be demolished. I constantly have to pick up trash and garbage left around this house. It's not fair to the other residents of my street that this eyesore remains after all these years. The picture of a rat that I have attached is from September when we saw the rat coming from that building, running up the sidewalk by GAR High School on the South Grant Street side. Also notice in the picture that the sidewalk on this side needs extensive repair. How can you have such a dilapidated building right next to a school filled with children? If you care for the safety of the residents of this city, you will have this building torn down. And he completes his first email, and then he sent another email stating, sorry, I forgot to put the address of the abandoned house that I was mentioning in my previous email. Although you can see the address on the one picture I attached, I wanted to be specific. The address of the abandoned double block house is 291-293 South Grant Street. Thank you for your time. Scott Dustman, Wilkes-Barre.
Comments?
Next we have from Sheena Warman, who lives on Cary Ave. I'm a lifelong resident of Wilkes-Barre, 2004 graduate of Myers High School, wife, daughter, granddaughter, mom of 3 15-year-olds, including 2 foster boys. Girl Scout, community volunteer, and recent creator of the Facebook group Wilkes-Barre, we're in this together. My Facebook group focuses on bridging gaps and fulfilling the fundamental basics within our community. Since its origination in April, I've consistently been accepting donations of clothes, shoes, household items, small furniture, etc., and redistributing them back into the community, free of charge. I quickly realized that those who are in the greatest need are also bound by transportation limitations, so we started delivering. 7 days a week for a few hours every day, my 15-year-old daughter and I are either picking up donations, sorting, labeling, or delivering things. We've helped dozens of individual families, including those that are starting over in a new home because they've overcome domestic violence, suffered a house fire, lost their job due to COVID, homeless, or are just simply struggling to make ends meet despite their best efforts. Additionally, we've secured numerous connections within the city and have made donations to Roots Place, Caring Alternatives, Children's Service Center, the Gardens at Wyoming Valley, and the McKinney Clinic. For the full recap of our accomplishments and personalized success stories, please visit our group. The abundant appreciation that comes with each and every connection is priceless, and our motivation is to not only continue but grow bigger and better. We have an overall goal of creating a thrift store like setting that would incorporate life skills training, clean, refurbished, repurposed, secondhand items, and an option of volunteering time in exchange for goods if there's a financial strain. However, our short-term goal is finding adequate storage as close to our home address as possible, where donations can be stored and sorted at the very least, in an attempt to stay compliant with city codes and keep up with the dedicated donors that support our mission. We're forced to bring all of our donations inside our home and redistribute them within a day or two. If there are any suggestions for storage space or questions, concerns regarding our initiative, I will include my contact information below. Thank you.
Excuse me, Mr. Arm, did I answer that?
Yes.
I'll make a copy and give it to you. I have. You want to make it?
Make a comment?
Lisa, could you make a copy of that, Lisa? Ms.
Oh, you sent it to
Warman,
her?
Mrs. Warman, this is Mayor Brown speaking. I may have a resolution for you. I've been speaking recently with several people who are investing in different properties in the city, and we may have a solution for you. So if you don't mind, give me a day or two, and say Monday at the latest, I'll reach out to you, and we may have a resolution for you.
Thank you, Mayor.
May I get a comment? Mr. Chairman?
Sir? Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to speak to the person who emailed about noise complaints. We definitely have I consider it's all under quality of life about noise. And I really believe that, excuse me, people have a right to peace and quiet. And I have examples over and over again. I have two chronic problems on different parts of Stanton Street. I have a chronic problem at McLean and Brown. And then I just shared a chronic problem with my colleague Mike Belisco from email from drag racing that's going along Ray Street and South Franklin Street. And then we also had a chronic drag racing problem over on Waller Street. So we have these constant behavioral problems with people and noise. And I really hope we can figure out how to work together to bring peace and quiet to our residents. So that's all I want to say. I concur with that person, whoever wrote those emails. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I totally agree. Thank you, sir. Okay, Jim?
Okay, the next one is from Samantha Cicchetti. My name is Samantha Cicchetti, 378 South River Street, Wilkes-Barre. I am not too new to this, although it has been a while since I attended a meeting. I was trying to give the new administration time to get things underway, and then with the pandemic, I am understanding that things have been crazy for everyone. The issue that I'm having is that a pandemic was happening for the last few months. Yes, but the issues here have been going on for over 10 years. A pandemic didn't mean things stopped. It just meant that I was working from home for part of the time and was able to see things all during the day rather than just catching things in the evening and at night. Thinking about if I was going to even attend this meeting, the question was, what would I do? What do I even hope to get from this? Honestly, I don't know. I need something to happen though. I come to meetings and get told how horrible this is and that my family shouldn't have to live with these issues. I was reminded though, when I looked through our hard drive of video and pictures from our security cameras of a meeting in 2015 when my husband and I created a compilation video for council. It took quite a long time and we made discs for everyone. We came back the next week and my father-in-law asked who actually watched the disc, and not a single person could say that they had. The advice from council is to call the police. When I do call the police, I get mixed information. In general, it seems that my family is viewed as the issue and that we need to just stop calling. We are told that if someone does something, such as trespassing, vandalism, etc., whatever, that unless the person is physically standing there, when the cops come, there's nothing to do. One officer says we have to keep them there. Another officer says we can't restrain them in any way, so we are stuck. Officers don't get out of their cruiser and just leave. We are on video standing on our front porch waiting to speak to an officer. They stop, don't get out of the car, and just pull away. If they do get out, they can be seen laughing and joking with the students at the house the complaint was against. They don't break up the parties or anything and just leave. Sometimes we are told that a citation was issued and we should be getting something in the mail, but that doesn't happen. One officer wanted a show of gratitude when he responded to a call. It didn't matter that he was there previously. Did not break up a party. When we said things are going to escalate, he left. As he was leaving, we called and said partygoers are now jumping the fence at their property, and it took him half an hour to respond. He was just pulling away when the person jumped the fence. When he came back, he did not even go to the house to try to see who had trespassed, and said that unless my husband could ID the person from our back porch across the yard to their porch, we couldn't do anything. When we said the guy went inside, he left again without doing anything. When I try to contact Wilkes about their students, I am told it's off campus and that there is nothing they can do. They don't know who lives in any of these houses, and I should just call the landlords. When I do report issues with people I know are Wilkes students, again, nothing is done. My calls are not returned. That part of my emails are ignored. They say, call the police. If I do call the landlord, he says how hard it is to evict anyone. He says, call the police. Everyone pushes it off. They are so sorry. I shouldn't have to deal with this. Call the police. I call the police and nothing happens. I'm not sure where this is to go from here. At the beginning of the mayor's term, I spoke to him about all of these issues. I had spoken to George Brown in the past and felt confident that things would be resolved in some way and that there would be real change for the better. A meeting to discuss issues, though, didn't end up happening. I was asked to be patient and to trust that things are in the works, I guess. It is extremely difficult to believe that things are going on, though when I speak to one person and I'm assured that this is important and someone will call this person and they don't seem to know what I'm talking about. My messages have even not been returned the past few times, so it really leads me to believe that nothing is going on. I feel as though I am either told what I want to hear to shut me up or simply being told to shut up. Property damage, vehicle damage, these things, though, are all minor compared to the most recent issue. Last week, I received a letter from children and youth. They are now making false claims involving my children. I have done nothing, my family has done nothing, my children should have no way been involved in any of this. It is disgusting. It's got to this point because nothing is ever done. There is no consequence. Wilkes calls students in, they say it wasn't them, it's fine. The police knock, they don't answer, it's fine. The landlord says kids will be kids, it's fine. It's not fine. These individuals are now saying they are in a gang. I have told the police and university this, and the students are still here. At what point does someone do something? What has to happen?
Can I make a comment on that one, Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, so I'm very aware of this situation. This is a constituent of mine who has come to city council many times, and when the discs that she mentions that her father John, who has now since passed away, I have watched these discs, and it's very troubling. My heart goes out to Samantha, and she's been crying for years and years for a solution. Just this past September, across the street from her, 2 properties that are owned by landlord who rents to Wilkes students. There were parties on the roofs of these houses, 25 kids partying on the roof of the front porch. The garbage that is around is just unbelievable. My suggestion is to the mayor and to myself, let's sit down with Samantha, let's sit down with the landlords who are around her, and sit down with Wilkes University officials. It is beyond belief. I mean, I also live in the middle of this too. My next door neighbors are nothing but Wilkes kids, and every single day I have to pick up beer bottles and garbage in front of my house, and on the weekends I have to pick up a lot of garbage. And my frustration finally hit through the roof this past weekend when I had to call the landlord of the house and say, look, your tenants are destroying my quality of life. I have broken beer bottles in the shared driveway. Do something about it. And guess what this landlord told me? It's your problem. You go talk to them. Totally unacceptable. I called the administration at Wilkes University and I complained to them about it. And guess what? Just today, now this party was this weekend, but just today, the kids who live next door to me came to me and apologized. Well, that's wonderful. But I don't want to have broken beer bottles in my driveway. And Samantha doesn't want to have kids going into her backyard. And Samantha doesn't want to hear people across the street go on and on and on with parties. So my recommendation, Mayor Brown, I will assist you with Wilkes University, the landlords. I think we should sit all of them down and say, look, you are destroying the quality of life for our residents in the city. Thank you.
Go ahead, Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Brooks. Samantha, I did receive a copy of your letter before today's meeting, and if you recall, you and I did speak a couple of times before the COVID virus took place. And once, I believe we had a meeting set up, but there was some miscommunication because Chief Coffey and I did come to your house, and we did knock on the door, and I thought you were going to be home, but obviously there was something with your child. I don't remember what it was, but we miscommunicated, and we did come to your house, though. And since I read your letter again today, City Administrator McCormick and I talked about this, and I don't know if it's going to do any good, but we're going to set up a meeting with Wilkes University. We're going to try and get them involved with this. I know it's off-campus housing. I don't know what responsibilities they have or authority, but we are going to try and resolve this again for you. But just so you remember, Samantha, when we did talk, you and I talked before the virus, like I keep saying, we did try to meet up and it just didn't work out. There was a miscommunication. So I didn't forget about you, but your letter today hit home again. So we're going to see what we can do about resurrecting that for you. Thank you.
Mayor Brown.
Thank
Okay, we have one more letter, email. It's to Wilkes-Barre City Council. As a resident of Wilkes-Barre and representative of firefighters Local 104, I strongly urge the members of City Council to approve Mayor Brown's proposed 2021 budget. The fee increases proposed in the 2021 budget are significant. It is also the best option available. To suggest layoffs as a solution to lost revenue and unemployment is short-sighted. More unemployed workers will not create the savings that the city needs, and the loss of services would be devastating, not to mention the public risk, safety risk inherent to decreased staffing. As we had found from layoffs from November 2012 until February 2013, the city paid almost $60,000 more in cost to maintain minimal services. This was due to massive overtime because of the shortage of firefighters. For our members, the suggestion of layoffs has created an environment of fear in our department, even as your firefighters respond to ambulance calls to combat the rising cases of COVID-19 in our city. We're now concerned about bringing this disease home to our families and not having a job to come back to. Your firefighters continued to protect our citizens when the virus hit, putting their needs above our safety. While most of the population was able to stay safe at home, we responded to their fires, car accidents, and calls for help with compassion and professionalism. Thank you for your time. Please vote to approve Mayor Brown's 2021 budget proposal. For the membership of OFIAFF Local 104, President Mike Bilski. And that's it, Mr. Chairman and Council.
Comments on the letters?
I would just like to say that I never suggested that the fire department, any member of the fire department, be laid off. Nor have I heard any of my colleagues suggest that any member of the fire department or police department, for that matter, should be laid off. We have never suggested laying off anyone in emergency services. And I've seen a lot of chatter saying that firefighters in particular are afraid of being laid off. And I'm not sure where that's coming from because, like I said, none of us have suggested that. And I just want to be very clear with Mr. Bilski and the rest of the fire department that, again, none of us have ever suggested that. So if you heard otherwise, that's just simply not true.
Thank you for that,
Thank you.
Mrs. McBride. Do we have any pending phone calls that have been hanging? No? Anything else from council? Closing remarks? Okay, motion to adjourn? Thank you.
Thank you.